What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm here to break down the NFL wide receivers on Draftkings for Week 6. We got a lot to get into. We got some good receivers to talk about, some good value receivers to talk about. But before I get into all that, if you're new here, make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, turn on the notification bell. All that stuff really helps me grow. We've had a lot of growth throughout NASCAR, NFL, NBA season. College basketball starts in like a month and a half, and I couldn't be more excited. And I'm really going to go hard for content on that. NBA just ended. NBA starts up again whenever. That'll be coming around as well, so be sure to stick around for all of that stuff. If you want to get more of my content, you can always subscribe to my Patreon for only $10 a month. You're going to get just a bunch of articles, stats, rankings, all that stuff. I'll put the link in the description below, so be sure to go check that out. But let's get started, where we're going to start with the only New York Jet that I will ever roster on DraftKings at this point is Jamison Crowder. $6,100 going against the Miami Dolphins. When we go look at the overall matchup, I should have started down here. Whatever. It's going to be a positive matchup for Jamison Crowder here. We got a line. The line is set at 47 right now, and they are not favored. Going to be playing from behind. Miami has allowed the 13th most points to wide receivers so far this year, and Jamison Crowder has the 11th best overall cornerback matchup. He's going to get to go up against, God, what's his name? I always forget this slot corner's name on Miami. He's not good. Nick Needham. He's going to get to go up against Nick Needham in the slot, who's just been bad this year. Jamison Crowder's also, in the 3 games he's played, averaged 10 targets per game, so that's what you like to see. Or, well, that's really only only two games of out Rashad Perryman is what's there, but 13, 10, 10 are the 3 games he's played are the targets he's been getting. So that's what you like to see out of a wide receiver. They're going to be playing from behind. I think he's a good play. I don't think a lot of people are going to play him because he's never popular and no one wants to play New York Jets, but it's a great matchup against Miami. They're not a good pass defense at all. They're going to be playing from behind. I mean, they're always going to be playing from behind, and he's getting targeted a lot. So I think Jamison Crowder is a pretty solid option. Next, we have Marquis Brown going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. This is overall going to be a very positive matchup for Marquis Brown. The line's right now set at 47.5 with the Baltimore Ravens favored, as they probably will be in most games this year. The Philadelphia Eagles so far this year have allowed the 6th most points per game to opposing wide receivers, but Marquis Brown does have the tough assignment of Darius Slay. Slay, I mean, he's not a cornerback that I really ever am just scared to go after. I don't want to just shy away from Darius Slay. He doesn't scare me that much, but he's been pretty solid this year. So I mean, that is a tougher matchup for Marquis Brown, but I mean, him and Mark Andrews are pretty much the only 2 guys Lamar Jackson really throws the ball to consistently, so I'm not really too worried about it. When we go look at the volume for Marquis Brown, he's been averaging 7.2 targets per game, and last week he saw 10 targets, and the week before he saw 8, so his target share has been coming up. He has a ridiculous 30% target share this year on his team, so Marquis Brown, definitely someone in play just for the volume, which is crazy because last year Marquis Brown was never a volume guy, but I like him in tournaments a lot. If you want to go there and cash, I think he's fine too, but there's probably better cash plays than Marquis Brown, but I do think he's still viable. T. Higgins is up next as a nice value play for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's only $4,700 on DraftKings. They play the Indianapolis Colts, which is a kind of tough matchup. I mean, as you see, they've allowed 23rd most points to wide receivers this year. That's not a fantastic matchup. But the Bengals are going to be playing from behind. The line's set at 46.5, and it is overall a positive matchup. And he's not going to get Xavier Rhodes, who's been absolutely shut down this the lockdown corner this year. Went from being the worst corner in the league last year to being one of the best this year. So good for him, but he's probably going to be on A.J. Green most of the game, maybe gets a little bit of Tyler Boyd. I doubt he really goes to T. Higgins too much. But if you look at T. Higgins, just not including week 1, we've seen 6, 9, 7, 8 targets from him. He looks to be an emerging wide receiver on his team, and I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if by the end of the year he's the number 1 guy, and I don't want to wait for that. I want to be ahead of that when he's still cheap, when it's still affordable for me. So I don't think the matchup against Rocketson's great, but it's also not horrible. I don't think a lot of people are going to be on T. Higgins this week, so I think he's a fine value option for tournaments. I think he's okay in cash because he is getting volume, but probably not the best spot to go to. Odell Beckham Jr. For the Cleveland Browns, they're going to face the Pittsburgh Steelers this week, and this game has a 51 game total, and usually Pittsburgh's a team I don't like to attack at all in DraftKings, but so far this year they have not been good against wide receivers in the air. They are the 5th rated, or have allowed the 5th most points to wide receivers on the year so far, and Odell Beckham has a pretty good individual matchup against Joe Hayden, who hasn't really been that good this year. 31st best matchup. That's, the number 31 isn't a great number, but it's pretty high up when you realize how many cornerbacks are involved in that. It's a lot. It's 100 and some cornerbacks, so 31's in the top quarter of it, so definitely a solid matchup for Odell. It's a positive overall matchup as well. They're going to be playing from behind. The game total is 51, a very high game total, which I was a little bit surprised about. You think Pittsburgh and honestly Cleveland this year too, just very good defensive teams. I think this could be a game that it has shootout potential. I mean, the total says that, so I think that upside's there. So I don't think Odell's a terrible guy to go to. I don't want to go to him in cash at all, but GBP's for sure. He's averaging 7.8 targets per game right now, and we've seen him get the upside of that 10 targets in week 1. If they're going to be playing from behind, which they haven't been in those 4 games after week 1, they're going to be playing from behind this game. Well, as the total suggests, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Browns take the lead here. They look like a really good team, but even in that, Odell Beckham 8 and 9 the last 2 weeks, so I think he's a pretty solid option. Chase Claypool, I just want to talk about. I want to talk about this whole Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver core because you have Chase Claypool, who just went off last week, whose price is now $5,200 on Draftkings, and you got Davonte Johnson, who's actually cheaper than Chase Claypool, and then Juju. Cleveland has allowed the 3rd most points to wide receivers this year, but the grades from the corners still are a tough spot. Look, Juju's going to be in the slot going up against Kevin Johnson, who's been a pretty solid slot corner. I mean, nothing special. Like, it's not anything to worry about. But then you got Davonte Johnson and Chase Claypool. Now, here's the thing. Davonte Johnson is normally the number 1 wide receiver, and Chase Claypool last week just took his spot when he got hurt really early in the game. He took over. So if Davonte Johnson misses, I think Claypool's fine. But the one thing I would be wary about with Chase Claypool is he's going to have to go up against Denzel Ward then. Denzel Ward is one of the best corners in the league, as you can see with that 79 ranking against Davonte Johnson. So I don't know if that's really the spot to attack him this week. And he's 5,200 now. Like, yeah, he saw 11 targets last week, which is what Davonte Johnson had been seeing at the beginning of the year. He literally took his spot. But it's just not something that I'm not really. I think this is a spot where you can get to Chase Claypool only if Davonte Johnson's out. But if Davonte Johnson's in, I'm not playing Claypool whatsoever. But if Davonte Johnson's out, I think he's fine. I think he's a little expensive. Like, he's not getting 40 points again this week. Like, just come on, you guys know he's not getting 40 points this week. So he's not getting 3 touchdowns again. If he does, God, he might be the next big thing in the NFL. But I don't think that's going to happen. So, I mean, I think he's a fine option, but still not a top-tier guy. It's just, I mean, 5,200 is a lot for a guy who's had one really good game. But Juju, on the other hand, he hasn't seen the volume. I mean, you're seeing he's only averaging 7 targets a game, and in 3 of those games, he's gotten less than 8 targets, which is not really great. Only 5 in week 3 and week 5. So that's a little bit nerve-wracking there, Juju, especially having him in fantasy football. But he's got a good matchup in the slot. This is the best spot to attack the wide receivers from, is the slot for Cleveland. So he's got a good matchup. He's got the upside. We all know he's a stud anyway, so I don't hate going to Juju in tournaments at all. Up next, you have Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller for the Houston Texans. They're going to be facing off against the Tennessee Titans this week. Overall, a positive matchup. We have a 53.5 game total for this game. They're going to be playing from behind as well, which is always what you like to see from these two guys. The Titans have allowed 11th most points to wide receivers this year. Then you got Will Fuller is going to be matching up against Malcolm Butler, and Brandon Cooks going to be matching up against Jonathan Joseph. I mean, they're fine corners, but nothing like to be worried about in my opinion. I don't think I need to be scared off of those guys. When you go look at the volume, look, Brandon Cooks really hadn't been utilized that much until last week. So now he's averaging 6.25 targets per game. We've seen him get 5, 8, 5, 3, and then 12 last week. And Will Fuller's averaging 7.5 per game. Will Fuller's the guy in this team on the offense. I don't think Brandon Cooks is getting 12 targets again. Last week they played Jacksonville, and he just had a beautiful matchup with 2 of their corners being out. So that made Brandon Cooks' life just really, really easy. He was able to pretty much get around him. Jonathan Joseph is, he's a tough corner. He's not what he faced last week. Let's just put it that way. Both these guys are in play for me. I think Will Fuller is okay for cash because he is seeing volume. Only seen under 7 targets once this year. There's probably better options to go to, but Brandon Cooks will remain only a tournament play as he will all year. But definitely guys I do like just because of the game script and the game total. Up next, we got the Jacksonville receivers, DJ Chark, Keelan Cole, and Laviska Shenault. This is the highest total game on the slate. It's tied. Okay, it's tied with the Atlanta-Minnesota game. So you have 2 games at 54.5 as of right now. I'm filming this on Thursday afternoon, so as of right now, there's 2 games at 54.5. The Jacksonville-Detroit one is one of them. You have DJ Chark, Cole, Shenault. It's going to be a positive overall matchup for them. The Lions have allowed the most points the 8th most points to wide receivers this year. DJ Chark's going to get a matchup with Desmond Trufant, who's been awful. That's a beautiful spot for him. All these guys are in play for me in tournaments and in stacks for sure with Gardner Minshew. I love Gardner Minshew as a stack this week, and I love going to these receivers. Probably not going to play any of them in cash because, Like, they're just not getting any consistent volume. Chenault's the only one who really gets volume, and I'm like, okay, maybe, especially the last 2 weeks, it's trending up of 6, 6, and 8, but he's a little bit more expensive in the 5K range now, so I don't know about that. Chark's only averaging 5 targets per game, but last week he did get hurt, and he is questionable. DJ Chark's questionable. If he misses, Laviska Shenault becomes like the best play on the slate, in my opinion. He's going to be the number 1 receiver. He is only 5,200 in a spot where he's going to go up against a corner who's really not that good. This guy's a stud. Like, he's going to be legit in the NFL. I do like Laviska Shenault a good bit this week. Keelan Cole's fine. He's Keelan Cole. He's always going to get his 5 to 7 targets every single week out of the slot. If you want to throw him in stacks of Minshew, that's fine. I probably wouldn't go anywhere else with Keelan Cole. Chark I like everywhere. Just has so much upside at that price. So definitely someone I like. Up next, we got probably the most popular receiver on the slate this week. It's going to be A.J. Brown. He's just way too cheap. 52.5 game total in this Tennessee Houston game. They're going to be playing from ahead this game. They're favored in this game. I mean, Houston's bad. They're a bad team. Tennessee's undefeated. Overall, going to be a positive matchup. I didn't even put in the corner for him, but he's going to go up against Bradley Roby, which is, it's a tough spot. I mean, it's not. Here, you know what? I'll give you guys the ranking. Automatic. And boom. There you go. See, it's a tougher spot, but it's not something that I'm just too worried about for AJ Brown. I think he's fine. I don't think Bradley Roby's a cornerback. I'm just too scared. I mean, Adam Thielen had a great game against him last week. The Texans have allowed 16th most points to receivers this year. That's a good spot for me. So AJ Brown definitely someone I want to have some exposure to. If we go over and look at the usage he's getting, he's averaging 8.5 targets in the 2 games he played. Now, last game was without Corey Davis and Adam Humphries, but he was with those guys in week 1. He still saw 8, so I think I'm fine with that. He's got a ton of upside. He's only $5,400, which is just ridiculously too cheap. He's great for cash. I'm going to play him in cash. I know I'm going to play him in cash, and he's great for tournaments. So I like going to him in both spots. I think this is a great. I think this is a great spot if you want to stack the Titans. I think you can do that. Tannehill, AJ Brown, Jonnu. That's really it. Maybe if Corey Davis plays, maybe, but I mean AJ Brown looks really, really good. I don't see any reason to just get around him. If you're playing cash, I'm playing AJ Brown 100%. He's my first wide receiver in the lineup. Jerry Judy I put in here is just like, maybe someone to throw in tournaments. He has a brutal matchup overall against New England, but he does play out of the slot. They're going to be playing from behind, and in the slot he gets to face off against Jonathan Jones, who is no Stephon Gilmore or J.C. Jackson on the outside, so that's going to be a much better matchup for Jerry Judy. Obviously, we're going to hope that he's not going to be playing up against Stephon Gilmore, but I don't think Gilmore is going to shadow him. We'll see what New England does. I'm kind of worried for fantasy purposes that are going to take away Noah Fant and not Judy, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I do think Jerry Judy's in a good spot. I think he's a sneaky play here. He's not expensive. So, I mean, and he's getting volume. I mean, we've seen him average 7 targets per game right now, only 1 game under 7 targets. And now you get Drew Lock back. Like, Drew Lock hasn't played since, like, the first quarter of week 2. So he has his quarterback back. I think they looked pretty good in week 1 with 8 targets. So I think Jerry Judy has some upside. Definitely like going there. Darius Slayton I put on here. I really don't know why I put Darius Slayton on here. Washington's actually been a pretty solid defense this year. Like, it's not good, but it's not bad. They have a good pass rush, and their corners really aren't that bad. He's going to get Ronald Darby this week, who's been an okay corner. The football team has allowed the 29th most points to wide receivers. Like, that's really good defense. So, it's a really low total, and they are favored, but I mean, Giants are not favored. And I'm a Giants fan, so we need to lose this game. I want Trevor. I'm done with Daniel Jones. So, Let's hope they're playing from behind because they're losing the game. But Slayton's, I mean, he's getting volume, though. That's the one thing I will say. I mean, averaging 8.33 targets per game without Shepard. He's seeing a ton of volume. I mean, I think he's okay if you want to throw him in tournaments, but probably I think there's just better options overall on the slate. So Terry McLaurin, I think, is someone that a lot of people are going to play, but I think I might stay away from McLaurin this week. Yes, the New York Giants have allowed the 12th most points to wide receivers, but it's not because of It's not because of James Bradbury, who's going to shadow Terry McLaurin all game. It's because of the other 2 garbage cans, and Isaac Yiadom and Darnay Holmes. They're 2 receivers they're guarding, which is going to be in this game Isaiah Wright and Dontrell Inman. And if you really want some deep tournament sleepers, those are your guys to go to. But Terry McLaurin's going to get James Bradbury, who has been absolutely elite this year. He's pretty much shut down everyone who's come into the building. I mean, we saw Amari Cooper did nothing last week. He was irrelevant. Now CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, they went off, but Amari Cooper was irrelevant. So I think it's a tough spot for McLaurin, and I think a lot of people are going to play him because he is playing the Giants. But I think I'm going to stay away from him this week. He is getting volume, though, averaging 9.66 targets per game, which is good. But I think Inman and Sims and Isaiah Wright, whoever's playing, they're going to be some interesting plays this week. Allen Robinson has a positive matchup going against the Carolina Panthers. The line's set at 45 right now, and they're supposed to be playing from behind. Now, Carolina has allowed 28th most points to wide receivers this year, so it's a tough matchup, but Dante Jackson's a corner. He's going to be matching up with 1v1, and he's looked pretty solid this year, but he's still Dante Jackson. He's still not that good. But the thing that really makes me like Allen Robinson is, one, he's only like $7,000, and he's averaging 11.4 targets per game. And since Nick Foles came in, he's seeing 13, 10, and 16. Hasn't seen under 10 targets since Nick Foles has been the quarterback. He just loves throwing Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson's just a guy I want to get in lineups every single week. If you can afford him in cash, I think he's a great cash play. I think he's a great tournament play. So yeah, Allen Robinson, definitely someone I like a lot. Kenny Golladay is the other wide receiver, is probably going to be ridiculously highly owned this week with A.J. Brown. That's fine. Another great cash play. They're going up against Jacksonville. The game's 54.5 game total. Super high-scoring game. Kenny Golladay is returned, and he's just too cheap. He's like $6,100, and it's just too cheap. The Jacksonville Jaguars have allowed the 14th most points to wide receivers, and he's going to get to go up against Trey Herndon, who's been garbage this year. Trey Herndon's been terrible. In the 2 games Kenny Galladay's played, we've seen him average 7.5 targets, seen 7 in one game, 8 in another game, and he's getting usage in the red zone. He's always got his big play usage because he's Kenny Golladay. So I think Kenny Golladay is a very, very good play. Everyone's playing him in cash this week. Don't fade him in cash. I'm sorry. Like, I just think you should just play A.J. Brown and Kenny Golladay in cash and just move on with it. Like, I think there's just like kind of lock-in plays this week. If they fail, they fail, but everyone else is going to have them, so it's okay. Tournaments, Kenny Golladay is upside. We know what the upside Kenny Golladay brings to the table, so I'm going to play him in there. Marvin Jones is on here just because they face Jacksonville, and Marvin Jones, you know what Marvin Jones can do. He'll have these crazy 4 touchdown games every once in a while, so I'm always going to play Marvin Jones in tournaments, and I really like him in the spot against Jacksonville. MVS and Davonte Adams are the 2 wide receivers for Green Bay that I'm interested in, although I'm not so sure how interested I am in Davonte Adams. Davonte Adams is a hard one for me that I think I'm still not made my mind up on yet. Their game total is 54.5, and they're like not favored, but they're 1-point underdogs. So it's gonna be a close game, so it's not like gonna be a game where Green Bay's playing from behind, you got to play Davonte Adams. Like, no, that's not gonna be it. It's probably gonna be a neutral game script. But Tampa Bay's pass defense is elite, man. I mean, there's allowed the 24th most points to wide receivers, and now he's going to get Carlton Davis, who's been a shutdown corner this year, and on the other side, Jamel Dean's going to go on against MVS, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they switch out on and off a little bit. Of course, Davonte Adams, in the one game he's played 100% in, so not week 2. Week 1, he saw 17 targets. I don't know if that's realistic again. Aaron Jones has usage in the passing game now. Jamal Williams has usage in the passing game. Robert Tonyan's an emerging tight end. MVS is there. Yeah, Lazard's gone, but MVS and Tonyan have stepped up. So I don't think he's going to see 17 targets, but he's going to see above 10. Like, I think there's not a game that Davonte Adams is healthy in that he doesn't get above 10 targets. And Davonte Adams has been practicing this week. He's back. But it's just the matchup is really tough, and he's going to be really popular this week because he's kind of cheap for Davonte Adams. I mean, like, if you want to go look at his salary, he's only $8,000, which, I mean, if he's going to get 17 targets, that's too cheap. But I don't think he's getting 17 targets again, especially if this shadow matchup with Carlton Davis is a really good corner. And then MVS is an even worse matchup against Jamel Dean. Jamel Dean is the 3rd-ranked corner by PFF right now, but, I mean, he only goes up against number 2 receivers, isn't really going up against number 1 guys that much, but that's fine. I mean, he's just going to lock down MVS. MVS should get usage, though. I mean, without these guys, I mean, if we look at the targets, I mean, last week he didn't play, obviously. He was out, bye week. But, I mean, he's averaged 6.5 targets per game, and in that one game against Atlanta where there was no Adams, there was no Lazard, he saw 8 targets. So, I mean, I think he should probably see someone 5, 6, 7 targets this game, but he's got a brutal matchup, so I don't know how much I really want to get there. It's tough. This game is a high total. It's a 54.5 game total. Like, it's just ridiculously high, and geez, that's 3 games with a 54.5 game total on this slate, man. Anyway, but I just don't know how great of a play that still is, because I don't know who to use Green Bay with. I think I'm honestly leaning more towards Aaron Jones in tournaments because he's a pass catching back. Davonte Adams is going to be chalky, and I think there's definitely other players you can get off of him too. Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are 2 receivers for Minnesota going against Atlanta this week in another super high total game. Obviously, this game has, there's some COVID stuff going on, so we don't know if this game's 100% happening, but assuming it happens, Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson look to be great plays. Atlanta's allowed the 7th most points to wide receivers this year. When we go look at their individual matchups, Adam Thielen's going to get Isaiah Oliver, and Justin Jefferson's going to get like an undrafted guy unless AJ Terrell's back, but even that's fine. Adam Thielen's been averaging 8.8 targets per game. He had that one game where he only had 5 targets, but then you've seen 2 games of 8 targets and then 10 and 13. He's getting a ton of usage, and this is a team you want to attack in the air, so Adam Thielen should get a bump up in the usage. And I mean, Dalvin Cook's not there, and I think they're still going to run the ball a ton of Alexander Madison, but like Adam Thielen, I should maybe get like an extra target here because they might just pass a little bit more. Justin Jefferson's a tournament-only play for me just because he has the explosive upside to just break the slate, so I'll be getting him in tournaments averaging 5 targets per game. And we'll close it out with the Atlanta receivers because I'm not interested in any of the Tampa guys because Jair Alexander's there. So I'm not talking about Mike Evans because Jair Alexander's there. Anyway, Julio Jones, if he plays, I think is a good, really solid option. Minnesota's allowed the 4th most points to wide receivers this year, and I put the number 1 corner on Ridley to number 2 on Julio, which I can't believe I did. But yeah, I mean, he's just going to have a great matchup. Both of them have great matchups. The corners in Minnesota suck. They're horrible. Cameron Dantzler, Holton Hill, they're not good. So they should be able to tear these guys up. So if Julio plays and he's healthy, like make sure to read beat writer reports. I think he's fine. We saw him see 12 targets in the one game he actually was healthy. Obviously, Calvin Ridley's averaging 10 a game, so he's a great play. They're both expensive, but they're both worth it in my opinion. But I think that's really all I got to say on the wide receivers. Thank you guys so much for checking this out. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe on the channel. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend and make some money.